Last week we talked about sharing our full travel budget for 2024, but as we were putting together that episode, we realized we really needed to talk to you about how we looked at our budget and also how we view money. We think that those ideas are very foundational to how we put together our travel budget, and we want to go through that with you first.
Next week, we'll be breaking down our numbers by month, by country, and by the region we visited. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of that.
I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way.
Life is unpredictable. One of the reasons that we decided to travel full-time and retire when we did is that we're in good health, and we don't know how long that we're going to be lucky enough to be in that situation. So when we are looking at money, we want to make sure that we're doing the things that are really going to give us a lot of value. Of course, we don't have unlimited funds, so we're not going to be extravagant and spend more than we have.
But this is our retirement. This is the way that we want to live our lives after we've worked in corporate America for way too many years. So the idea is we're going to be careful with cash and make sure that we spend the time doing the right thing so we enjoy life.
We know that there are people who really like crunching their numbers, and they do it a lot. We are not that precise with our money. So one of the reasons that we haven't shared our finances with you is because we've just not focused that much on them. We certainly have a budget and we stick to it, but at the same time, we are not penny perfect.
We are traveling to many different countries all over the world. And because we're doing that, we can't always pay with credit cards. Sometimes we have to pay with cash. When you use cash in a country, you're dealing with conversion rates and you're dealing with varying money changes that happen while you're in a place. Within a month, money can change drastically. So our attitude is, look, we're going to be as close to perfect as we can with tracking these numbers. But when we're spending cash, we know it's probably going to be restaurants, tips, things we spend tickets on for tours sometimes, and kind of a select group of things. So we just take that under advisement and say, look, we're going to do as well as we can with money, but we're not going to fret over every little dime.
So there are times when we have spent money on tips and we haven't recorded it.
Right.
We're trying to do better with that so that we can give more accurate accountings to our viewers who we know really rely on how much we spend in a specific location.
The big picture's correct. Maybe some of the tweaks are not right there, but we're really on board with giving you as much honest information as we can.
Let us know in the comments if you'd like us to deep dive into any specific area of our budget. I know we've had some people ask about our transportation costs and how we get around from every single place to another, and we're happy to do that if we know that there's interest from you. If you have other ideas, please let us know. We've tried to live our lives, and certainly with our finances, with an abundance mentality. We also know that we have a lot of privilege and we don't ever want to be glib about that or take that for granted.
Yeah, this is not everybody's way of living, and we understand that. We also know that we're unconventional people. I mean, I've started 5 different companies since 1981, and we've kind of lived our lives more, what can we do next? What should we do next? If something happens wrong in our lives, we've learned to adjust and move quickly. We fall down, we make mistakes, we get up, dust ourselves off, go forward, and that's just the way we've attacked life. So this kind of travel, where we have to be kind of flexible all the time, is something we're fairly good at.
We also really believe that what we put out into the universe will come back to us. So when there's a charity we want to support, or a family member or a friend who needs help, we try to do that if we can. We don't necessarily focus on how much money we have and whether that fits into our budget. We know that we'll be able to somehow make the numbers work in the end. But at the same time, if we notice that our burn rate is running way too high, we make adjustments for that too.
When we quit our jobs to travel full-time, we understood that we were going to have to somehow fill in that income. We have investments, we have stocks, we have things that we've set aside.
But probably not as much as a financial planner would tell us we needed to have.
No, exactly. But we also knew that we didn't want to touch it. Even if we had enough set aside, we wanted to supplement that. So we tried to be creative, like starting a YouTube channel and other things that we'd like to do in the future. We have plans for supplementing our income. But even though we're going to look at making more money, we're not bowing down to the almighty dollar. That's not our focus. Our focus is to enjoy our retirement.
Let's start by talking about how we look at spending. We have a budget, but we don't consider ourselves budget travelers. We're also not luxury travelers. We do not stay at 5-star hotels ever. When we're booking flights, we typically book an economy. Occasionally, when we're doing long haul flights, we'll bump up to premium economy. But we'll also use travel points in order to save some money there. And we also save money by flying budget airlines. We don't really have loyalty to any specific airlines. We don't find that that saves us any money. But at the same time, we weigh all of our costs of flights and travel. So sometimes if we're going to have to check our bag or we pay for seat assignments, we look at that total number all together when we're picking out which airline to choose.
Yeah, and the way we travel, you can't always get the same airline all over the world. Sometimes these really short flights are great on the local airlines.
One of the reasons we say we're unconventional is because I quit my job just a month before we started traveling full time, which was a really scary thing to not have an income coming in for us. But at the same time, we knew that this was the right thing for us, but we didn't have a lot of time for planning. The idea of being full-time travelers really only crystallized the last month before we set out to travel.
Yeah, and after we started traveling, I quit my job.
Now, the idea for Kevin to quit his job was not something that he suddenly did. We knew that that was going to be happening, but it was still unsettling when we made that decision. And we just knew that we were going to hustle, and we were prepared for that before we even set off to leave. At the time, our YouTube channel wasn't making any money, but we were prepared to put in some sweat equity to make it work. But all that is to say that we didn't have an entire year of travel planned. We didn't even really know what an entire year of travel was going to look like.
Our expenses in San Francisco were so high that we knew we could do something better. And so the budget we put together was just to say, here's how we could live overseas. Maybe this would be wonderful if we had less rent and less consumerism and just cut out a lot of things in our lives. So that was our focus, just to get out the door.
So let's talk about how we prioritize how we spend money in our various categories. The first is accommodations. We know that we're not really hostel style people. We like our privacy a little bit too much. Plus, we do a lot of work and it's more comfortable and easier to spread out and to film ourselves when we have a little bit more room. But we also recognize that we want to be in parts of the city where we can be close to the action. When we have to commute too far, that isn't giving us the experience we necessarily want. First and foremost, of course, we want to be safe. So we look at all of those things and try to come up with a plan for accommodations that will work for us. Our accommodations typically are Airbnbs or apartment-style hotels from Booking.com. And typically we choose those because hotels can be really expensive. They don't offer discounts for extended stays. On Airbnb, we get discounts for week-long stays and also for month-long stays, which make things so much more affordable for us. Staying in an Airbnb also feels more like a home-like setting for us. So when you're living life on the road, having some sort of semblance of a routine and feeling a little bit normal goes a long way. We're able to get kitchens and a washing machine and a couch, which is definitely much more comfortable than being in a hotel and just sitting on a bed. And usually there's only one chair and there's two of us.
One of the more flexible areas of our budget is food.
I like to cook, so we were planning all along for us to be doing that while we're traveling. And it's fun to go into local markets and see what fresh fruits and vegetables are there. But at the same time, part of the importance of traveling is the connection to food and how that fits into culture and everything else. So we knew we wanted to eat at restaurants as well.
We also know that we have rituals, like the morning ritual of getting cappuccino is one of my favorite things. It starts off our day. It's one less thing to think about in the world that we live in of travel, 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 move, move, move. If we can just sit down in the morning, exhale, have a conversation, figure out where we're going today, figure out what we're doing, it's just beautiful for us. So we're willing to bend our budget a little bit, spend a little bit more in the mornings. And as Judy said, maybe we'll save money later by just shopping and making some food.
And also we typically only eat 2 meals a day, figuring out where to eat and what to eat. And it's a lot.
It's exhausting.
So maybe occasionally we'll have snacks, but for the most part, 2 meals a day works great for us.
Speaking about history and culture, we really like to make sure that we understand a city that we go to and a country that we're living in. So the first thing we do is look and see, are there tours or things that we can do to learn more about the place right away.
And we try to avoid tours that are maybe too food focused because those can be really expensive, but history is really important for us to learn about. So sometimes getting that on the ground information from a local is really valuable to us. We don't always do tours, but we do budget to include some of them.
We're also willing to spend money when it comes to big ticket items. Like when we were in Egypt, a Nile River cruise wasn't first on our list, but we looked at it and said, you know what? We're going to see all these different places along the river. We're going to have guided tours. We're going to have the information that we need to learn about them the right way, not just look up information on the internet. So we set aside money and spent it.
We also did the same in the Sahara Desert, and we spent money on a ryokan when we were in Japan. Those were not necessarily things that are budget friendly, but they're still important for us to do as part of our travel adventures.
When we're planning our budget each year, we try to make sure that the first thing we put on it is a trip back to the U.S. We prioritize spending time with family and friends, and if we don't put that on the calendar first, we may not schedule it at the right time. There are things going on with family. There's celebrations, there's birthdays, there's major events. We want to make sure that that time of the year is set aside for them.
We also know that there are times when family and friends are going to be traveling and we want to meet them there. So we have some flexibility in our budget and also in our schedule to be able to meet people, even though we know sometimes those aren't the most cost-effective things to do. For instance, we traveled with our daughter to Italy this past year, and she also joined us in Japan. Neither of those were inexpensive trips, but when we get the opportunity to travel with our family, we absolutely want to take advantage of that.
One of the ways we save money is using geographic arbitrage. So when we're in an area of the world, let's say Southeast Asia, if we can stay in that area for longer and take shorter flights from country to country and save money there, we certainly will do that.
We typically stay about 1 month in each country, and that works out well. It doesn't give us too much time to be bored in a place, but it also gives us enough time that we aren't anxious because we're constantly moving. But that also means we're not going to see everything in a place. So for instance, when we went to Thailand, we spent 5 weeks in Chiang Mai. Now, we got some healthcare done while we were there, and that was great, but there were other parts of Thailand we wanted to see. In fact, we tried to go to Bangkok, but that trip was going to cost more money in that country that we didn't want to spend. So although we tried to crunch it and make it work, there are sometimes situations where we're just going to have to come back another time and visit those places we missed the first time around.
There are times when we overlap trips. So we said we're going to spend a month in, for example, Busan. And that was great. South Korea is a wonderful country. We wanted to spend as much time as we could there. But we were missing out on Seoul. And we said, well, we've booked a month here, but what if we took the end of a trip, because we had to fly out of Seoul anyway, and spend a couple days there? Or when we were going to Spain, we booked a month in Madrid, but we really wanted to see Barcelona. Turns out we were flying into Spain in Barcelona, so we extended our time in Barcelona by a couple days just to make sure we could get time in another city. We did save money on that longer stay in both Busan and Madrid. And that allowed us to feel better about overlapping some of our time and our hotel costs in the other cities. We got a little peek at what the rest of the country looks like, and that seemed like a good compromise for our budget.
Especially because Barcelona and Seoul were both really expensive, and we couldn't stay there for an entire month, which was probably our preference when we were trip planning. So we compromised and chose a different city, but then we still managed to visit a little bit. And in both of those countries, they have fast trains that were more affordable than what a flight would cost.
That's true. Travel within a country dictates sometimes how we plan our travel. Staying in one place for a longer time allows us to save some money for the bucket list locations that we really want to get to.
So for instance, Amsterdam, it's been on my bucket list forever. I really wanted to see the Van Gogh Museum and the Anne Frank house, but Amsterdam's a really expensive place, so staying for a month is impractical for us. When we were in Vienna, we decided to take a quick flight, spend 3 days in Amsterdam, and then head back to our same Airbnb in Vienna. It meant that we were paying for a hotel in Amsterdam, and then also an Airbnb in Vienna. Now, I was lucky and was able to use some Marriott points in Amsterdam, so I didn't actually have to pay for accommodations there, but sometimes we do. And those sunk costs we're okay with on occasion because we still want to have the experiences we want to have. One of the things we try to do is to keep our accommodations flexible so that we can cancel. And we also, for certain flights, we try not to book them too far in advance unless we're really concerned that the price is going to change. That allows us to be flexible when we have somebody who wants to meet up with us. We love meeting up with our friends, family, some of our viewers. And so if we have the chance to change our travel plans and not have it cost too much to do, we want to do that.
But if we do have stuff booked, sometimes we have to squeeze these trips in, which means we resort to fast travel. Not our favorite way of doing things, but it's well worth it if we have an opportunity to do something or meet someone and we just want to put that on our schedule. We'll pay for that.
There are also some countries that we fast travel through because they're high sensory locations, such as Egypt. We spent 2 weeks in Cairo and then 2 weeks in Luxor. We did the same thing in Morocco, where we were 3 weeks in Marrakesh and then 2 weeks in Fez. They were affordable countries, but we also just didn't know if they would be exhausting to spend time in. So we wanted to give ourselves some opportunity to move quickly if we wanted to. And that worked out really well. And both of those countries, we probably could have stayed longer, but we were glad to not be stuck and have to stay for an entire month.
In both those countries, the two cities that we stayed in were very different. So it was like, this is great. We're experiencing a very different type of culture. If we would have gone there and stayed in one city, we might have had a whole different opinion of the country. So sometimes fast travel works to our favor. But sometimes we go to an area and we have to make really tough choices.
We had come to South America and it was part of our plan to be visiting Machu Picchu and Patagonia. But it turned out that when we got here, one of our flights got canceled and to reschedule was going to cost much more than what we originally booked. Now, we could have just said, this is really a place we're here. We need to go do it anyway. Yeah. But it just we couldn't make the numbers work. So although we're someplace and it would be convenient to visit certain things, sometimes we just don't have the budget and we have to save that for another trip.
Yeah, it's hard to say no when you see that it's right over there. Why can't we get there? Well, because now we're going to book a flight a week before. That's not going to be cost effective. And like Judy said, we're world travelers. We do this all the time. We travel full time for a reason so that we can come back to the places we love the most.
Or the places we missed and wanted to see.
True.
Next week, we're going to be bringing you everything that we spent in 2024. There's going to be all kinds of numbers for you to chew on. You're not going to want to miss that episode. If you haven't subscribed already, we hope you'll do that. And the best compliment that you can give us is to recommend our videos to your friends and family.
And check out findingginaMarie.com, where you have articles, downloads, and our free community forum.
Until next time.
Until next time.